In my last video I talked about the death of the music shop Banks Music in York. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a look. The link's up here. It's an important part of the UK music history, I think. In it I ended up by showing you some manuscript that I bought at Banks, perhaps one of the first things I bought there, made by Panopus, a manuscript specialist that is no longer with us. It went down in the year that I bought it, around about 1997. And I think of it as the first in a series of dominoes to fall over the next 2 decades. The reasons for this are what I'd like to explore in this video. It's going to be a long one, so strap in, let's go. Sibelius is a music notation program. Around the end of the 90s it was one of many, but its main competitor was Finale. I first came across Sibelius on an old Acorn computer, and a lot of people remember that version of Sibelius with fondness, version 4 I think it was, but it was the PC port, the one that they did for Windows and later for Mac, that has hugely taken off and is still with us today. Sibelius was mainly popular because of its ease of use and the intuitiveness of its function. It had this keypad on the side of it which showed you what you were doing at the same time, and you could quickly and easily make a score without too much fuss. In conjunction with this, home printers migrated from the dot matrix printer to the LaserJet or to the Inkjet printer. This allowed the user to print off beautiful scores and beautiful manuscript. You no longer needed to rely on going down to the shop to get it. You didn't have to rely on a typesetter to make your work. You could make your own beautiful scores, you could type them in, and you could transpose them easily and print them out for different instruments. It wasn't ideal though. You still had to print out the music, and everyone was working from those fold-up stands, and then you had to put the music on the stands and it would fall everywhere, it'd have loose sheets everywhere. Okay, it was good for study purposes, but not great in the real world. So what happened next? Amazon was growing up as an online bookseller around 2000, and we started to lose a lot of high street bookshops. As a result, a lot of smaller bookshops had to close, and then the big ones started struggling, and it culminated in 2009 with Borders closing all of its UK retail outlets, losing all those lovely shops with all those beautiful specialised books and lovely cafes in them. It was a very sad time for the UK retail market. Luckily we still have Waterstones, but I can't help notice it doesn't quite stop the same number of specialist books that I'm after. I'm not going to say much more about the effect of internet shopping on the high street because I don't have the data. Everyone knows about the effect that it's had on our local high streets and how little is actually available there now. Around the 2000s, it was very common to hear academics walking around going, "Do you know, I can keep all of my music on a single CD-ROM, thousands and thousands of pieces of sheet music." This was largely down to the PostScript printer language and the invention of the portable document format, or PDF. This was invented in 1991 by graphics firm Adobe as a way of bringing files from one computer to another interchangeably. They'd look the same on every system and they'd print out the same. This later became an open standards and open source medium, so it's now ubiquitous. Those with a scanner, and let's face it, everybody in the noughties had a cheap scanner somewhere, could just copy in all their sheet music and just have it on their computer, and then they could make copies of it and they could send it to other people, and you could even share it online, albeit illegally in most cases. It's not too much of a coincidence that Napster was very popular at this time. Napster was a music player that was built around its system of being able to share audio files in MP3 format. MP3 or MPEG, audio layer 3, was an audio compression format that was developed in 1998, and in 2000 to 2001 Napster was hugely successful and popular right before it was dealt with multiple lawsuits by the audio industry and finally brought down in 2002 when it filed bankruptcy. You can think of PDF as being the MP3 of the written document. Small files, very easy to share, and containing all of the information that will replicate the original. Musescore began development in 2002. It's a completely free and open source alternative to Finale and Sibelius and offers people the ability to notate and to typeset their work. It was not the only free notation software available at the time. There's also LilyPond, a PostScript generator that was based on the text and LaTeX markup languages. It's very capable, but let's say not very user-friendly. The other system that was around was by software engineer Leyland Smith, and it was called Score. It's, again, less than user-friendly and not up to the modern standards of user interface, but a lot of people still swear by it. It was a very good program. Musescore is very popular because it's, well, free, unlike Sibelius and Finale. It's available on Mac, PC and Linux, and it follows most of the modern UI guidelines. It was also, well, how to put it politely, crap. The default typesetting was dreadful. The GUI was confusing at points. And if you wanted to do anything special with typesetting or anything detailed, then you could just forget it. But it was free. And if you could get around those limitations, you could typeset anything you like, notate anything you like for, I'll say it again, free. Since around 2010, Musescore has become a force to be reckoned with, especially around students and teachers for whom cost is everything. I wouldn't say it's eaten into Sibelius and Finale's profits especially, but it is noticeable that around the time they started offering free versions, albeit limited, of their software. Sorry, Dorico users, I'll get to you, I promise. Alright, so we've got PDFs flying around, and now we've got newly typesetted bad versions of things in Musescore and in Finale and Sibelius format flying around. But where's the torrent download system that Napster had? How do we share these things? How do we get hold of all this music that's now flying around in the ether? The International Musescore Library Project, or IMSLP for short, otherwise known as the Petrucci Library, was launched in 2006. It is an online library containing, in PDF format, any and all out-of-copyright sheet music. Composers and typesetters can also put their sheet music up on the Petrucci Library under the Creative Commons License 4.0, which allows people to use it and alter it. ChoralWiki, or the Choral Public Domain Library, otherwise CPDL, is a very similar site but entirely devoted to choral music. Both of these are hugely important resource for professional musicians. I mean, why would you go into a music shop and hand over $16 when you can just download it for free straight onto your desktop, right? I should also mention illegal file sharing sites like Mega Uploads, which eventually got its comeuppance, and also private Google Drives, which are now being shared on chat sites like Reddit and 4chan. So illegal copying does happen. So we've got PDFs flying around, but we still have to print them out and put them on a stand. So what? I mean, surely you still want a book in your hand. You can't just do that with a PDF on a screen, can you? Unless, like me, you tried to balance your monitor on top of the keyboard and it fell off and broke. The rise of the touchscreen has been hugely important to the music industry. Here we have a piece of paper that can change and display all of your PDF files, whether legally or illegally copied. It was the iPad Pro made the biggest impact. It came out in 2015 and it came out in 9.7 and 12.9 inch varieties. And it also came with a handy stylus, albeit expensive one, that you could annotate your PDFs with. So we have everything that you can do on a piece of paper, you can now do with a device. The success of the iPad, though, would be nothing without the success of one of its apps, ForScore. Created and maintained by a single developer, Justin Bianco, this is an app that's hugely successful and it's dedicated to the presentation and use of sheet music PDFs. It's very reasonably priced and does really slick page turns, can hold all of your music, and has really great features like a library of music, some set lists, you can reorder your scores and you can annotate them, and perhaps the one that's most rocked the music industry, the ability to turn pages either with a Bluetooth pedal or via MIDI message, and the ability to send out MIDI messages. This last feature, for example, allows keyboard players to change patches on their keyboard by just turning the page, or it allows a director to turn everyone's pages at the same time. Other music readers do exist, but in my opinion, none of them quite match up to ForScore for their ease of use and sheer brilliance. I should add now that there are a few subscription-based services and ways to get legal copies of music on your iPad, such as Encoder and Music, that allow you to pay for music and then download it and use their reader to read it. Unfortunately, they're often not that great in terms of user experience because they use proprietary formats. It's not as slick as something like ForScore. Right, so we have all the music and we have a way of displaying it for you to play from it. So that's got to be the final nail in the coffin for the publishing industry, surely. Certainly with regards to selling sheet music. Is it going to become a thing in the past? I think there are a couple more things that are influencing this. Recently, I received an email from Boozy and Hawks offering a big discount on their facsimile editions. Facsimile editions used to be the only way to get hold of the composer's original manuscript without visiting the library in which they're kept. They're photographs of the manuscript and they're bound in big hardbound leather books, and they're very expensive. They're over £100 even with the discount. Not anymore though. IMSLP was created partly because of the digitization of all of Bach's works and being able to organise them onto a site. And you can actually access all of Bach's digital works on a site called bachdigital.de. It's very well worth a check out. It's an amazing store of manuscript, not just Bach, but his immediate family and friends and all of the music that they had. Other libraries and museums have followed suit. There's archive.org, which is a brilliant collection of digitized books from the last few centuries, or a lot of them out of print, very difficult to get hold of or impossible, and all freely available to use and digitized and also recognized so you can search the text. There's gallica.banf, which is the digital wing of the Bibliothèque Nationale Française in Paris. Which has an amazing collection of documents and manuscripts and includes, for example, the works of Charpentier, some of the works of Debussy and Fauré and things like that. There's the German equivalent, the Deutsche Nationalbibliothek, which has all the German composers, and the British Library also has a growing collection of digitized scores by composers like Purcell and people like that. It's well worth having a look on their website and looking at these amazing original manuscripts. This is nothing short of a revolution, in my opinion, in the way that we access older works. We no longer have to depend on the editions that were given fourth hand through the publishers. We can just go straight to the source. If we have any questions about anything, or if we're using an edition which we're not sure of, if we don't agree with the copy or we don't want to shell out for a fancy Urtext edition, we can just make our own with the freely available notation software. So many user-created editions are appearing on IMSLP, for example, because it's so easy to make your own versions of these scores. Some of the authority of these editions are a little bit questionable, but you can always have a look at the original and check it. Okay, that's got to be it. That's got to be the final nail in the publisher's coffin. Sheet music is doomed. There's another thing. There's another thing. Modern computers are extremely powerful. We've got more power in the average desktop PC than we did have in a supercomputer 20 years ago. We can sustain multiple streams of audio and visual data in high quality, and it allows us to create video and music on our desktop. We do this via a DAW or digital audio workstation. I won't talk to you about the different digital audio workstation apps. Safe to say that there are lots of them. They're all very capable and with varying degrees of ease of use, and some of them are free, some of them are expensive, some of them are really expensive, but they all essentially do the same thing, albeit in different ways. The importance of a DAW is that it's changed musical composition forever. You no longer need to write it down. You can just improvise it into your computer, change it and edit it, and then release it into the internet and make revenue. You can even score a whole film using just a DAW and a big library of sounds that will allow you to create an orchestral sound from your own computer. Such is the success of the DAW that so many students are coming into university not having learned any music notation at all. It's quite possible to get by without having to learn it. Why would you learn all those symbols and difficult things? It's noticeable too that Dorico, the most recent competitor to the notation app market, told you I'd mention you, has many DAW-like features and allows you to play back and change the sample library just like you would inside a DAW, as well as edit the very notes themselves in what's called a key roll, which is a representation of the notes across a piano roll, almost like you would for a pianola. Dorico is created by the same team that brought you Sibelius. In 2006, Avid, the audiovisual giant, took over Sibelius, and then in 2012 they laid off the entire team from the London office. Steinberg bought up all those workers with the intention of creating their own notation app to complement their suite of audio apps like Cubase. The most striking thing about Dorico is the synergy between notation, which is very advanced, and also playback, which is becoming more and more prevalent and useful in the application. And this strange bringing together of DAW composers and notation composers engenders a lot of interesting debate on their forum. Music has always been mostly an oral tradition, and the existence of folk musics alongside highly notated music like classical music is proof that we don't need to have it written down for music to thrive and for people to access it. The DAW channels that into a form that is shareable and that you can record and that you can listen to anywhere. It's a new type of notation that doesn't need all of these symbols. It has the notation built in to the way that you access it. So that's got to be it, right? A lot of music is no longer published on sheets. It's published just as a recording or as a DAW file. And the sheet music that we have is all on iPad now. It's no longer being sold in music shops. Oh, wait, there's one more. Okay, I can't talk about the DAW without also talking about the impact that recorded music has had on the industry as a whole. You've got to think about where sheet music makes its money. And if I go back to these music room clones, these music stores where you go in and it's basically guitars and a few tuition books and the odd Coldplay greatest hits music. The other thing that you'll find in those shops are compilations of 50s and 60s music, all these different songs in a piano vocal score that you can play along to and sing along to. This is where sheet music made its bread and butter. It's in the little copies that you find underneath piano stools, or used to find underneath. You see, pianos used to be much more ubiquitous. Everybody used to own one in their living room. It was a piece of furniture, and everyone gathered round and they played the piano and sung songs around them. And that's how music was accessed by your regular person. That's been replaced by listening to music over speakers or just streaming it on your own device. Every musical society needed an accompanist as well, for example. That's been replaced by tracks. Attending concerts was a huge deal back in the day, not in the big stadium way, but just down the road at your local concert venue. People would go and listen to music because that's the only way they could access it, and they got to listen to some of the best pianists and people that are going around. That's no longer there. You can listen to some most astounding recordings of sheet music. In the same way, the cinema industry is nothing like what it used to be. There used to be cinemas everywhere where you'd go and see the latest film and you'd talk to your neighbours and you'd have fun. And now everyone's got their own cinema in their living room, a giant great telly, in which you can see all the latest releases and stream everything. And that's what's happened to the music industry. I semi-taught myself how to read sheet music when I learnt the piano, and that's often a way that I make my bread and butter. I'm a good sight reader and I can analyse sheet music as I go. But I'm quickly finding this position to be untenable in modern circumstances when things are being replaced by the recorded medium. Indeed, using this technology has become a very important part of being a musician today. As a musical director, I need to know how to use MainStage and ForScore, for example, to play from iPads and onto pianos and be able to play different sounds. I need to know how to use a click track. I need to know how to typeset parts to help players perform and to do it neatly, and to know how to transpose things using a computer, although it takes a lot of the effort out of it. Frequently, my ability to use this software has been the thrust of my employment. Although it has to be said that a lot of the classical musicians are unwilling to or can't pay for this service properly. and the classical music industry is reluctant to change. I love music shops. I hate that you can no longer walk down the street and just walk into a music shop and thumb through the music and have a nice chin wag with the owners. It hurts my heart that something like Banks Music has had to close. It's one of those shops that you just are very glad that they're just there, even if you don't visit them. But it feels inevitable that things are going this way. When the convenience of ordering something on the internet and having it sent to you, or just clicking on a link and having it automatically and instantly on your device outweighs the hassle of going out and going to a shop and buying the music there, it seems obvious that sheet music shops are going to disappear, and probably publishers as well. I hate to end on such a bleak note. Maybe you've got some great stories about working in music shops or otherwise being involved in them that you can tell me about in the comments, or maybe you're a publisher and you can give me some sort of ray of light, some sort of ray of hope that our music publishing industry isn't doomed. Why don't you tell me all that in the comments? And if you like this video, then please click the like button and subscribe for some more. I promise they're not all as bleak as this one. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye. Support your local music shops. Bye.